All right. We are back. We are back. Thank you all for coming back in to the broadcast. Thank you for coming back in. Welcome to those of you who are with us for the first time. This is part 2 of our Daring Dialogues for today. And we are reading and studying from the book Mean Girls All Grown Up. I hope this study is helping you. And today we're talking about, why does God allow you to face a mean girl? The first reason we talked about was purification, that God may be using that mean girl to purify you. The second reason we talked about was an opportunity for obedience, and it's an opportunity to obey the word of God. It's an opportunity to express the word of God through your own life, right? And the third reason we're about to get into is your creation. Now, this is the one. This is the one that sometimes we don't necessarily want to admit, right? The fact that, and somebody can type, number 1, purity, purifying. Number 2, obey the word. It's an opportunity to obey. And the third one is, the mean girl could be in your life because she is of your own creation. And we're going to explain that, all right? So hopefully we won't be too long on part 2. She says, the final proposal I have for the reason your mean girl is in your life might come as a shock. This one might not apply to you, and if it does, you might not want to believe me. But think about it honestly. Sometimes a mean girl is of your own creation. A lot of times, girls are mean to you because of what you've done, either knowingly or unknowingly. I've had times in my life when I really didn't trust women, and so I retreated to the world of guys. And we're actually going to do a whole segment on that, on women who avoid women altogether. And so they just hang out with guys. I was like that at one point in time. But she is right. Sometimes a mean girl can be of your own creation, meaning you may have actually done something to her, either knowingly or unknowingly. I had a scenario like that in college where one of my friends became very, very, very antagonistic towards me. And she was like sabotaging things, sabotaging projects. She was sabotaging my ability to run for office and certain things I was involved in. And it finally got to the point where I was like, once I found out it was her that was actually sabotaging me, and I finally had a conversation with her one-to-one about what I had done to anger her, it was over a guy. Go figure. It was over a guy. It was over someone that she was in a relationship with, and I didn't know. And they had broken it off. I guess they were seeing each other secretly. And then I proceeded to be in a relationship with that guy. But I didn't know that she had already been in a relationship with him prior, because they had a secret relationship and nobody knew. So it wasn't something that I could have foreseen or anything like that. But that was her reasoning behind her antagonism. And it was something that I had done to her per se, but it was unknowingly. All right. So she says here, I spent all my time with men and cut off any contact with women. As I look back now, I see that I might have made a few enemies because what I was showing subconsciously was that I didn't like women. I was passing judgment on them, and who likes to be judged? The way I behaved by avoiding women altogether might have been the very thing that drove them to hate me. So you see, I could have in fact created my own mean girls by the way I acted around them. All right. You might have created your own mean girls in other ways. Perhaps you are too sensitive and are on the defense when women talk to you. That makes you a dangerous woman because they never know when you will scratch them in self-protection. Women tend to be dangerous and women tend to be mean to dangerous women. It is a function of their self-protection mode. I hate to even say this, but it might be true. We have to consider all angles. You might be a mean girl yourself without even knowing it. You maybe have gossiped about someone or hurt their feelings, and now you have made yourself an enemy. You might have lied about her, and now she's hitting back with lies of her own. Or maybe you just judged her for not being a friendly person, so now she's spreading rumors about you. She could be mad at you for any number of reasons, and a lot of them could be something that you have maybe triggered yourself. All right? So, if you want to get rid of the mean girl in your life, you have to analyze your life. You have to be honest and assess how you live, right? What you have done and how you're doing it. If there are mean girls in your life because of something you are doing, then that means you have the power to change things. Okay? So you're actually in a better position than the woman who honestly isn't doing anything to provoke a mean girl. If you are the one that's doing something to provoke it, then you have the power to get out of the situation by changing what you're doing, right? You can do something concrete to change in your life. So, if a light bulb is going off over your head right now and about something you might be doing to make women angry, understand that changing it today won't necessarily make everything go away tomorrow. But if you've done something that has sent someone on a rampage, mending fences is possible, but it might take time. With apologies and forgiveness over time, you can fix the mess you've made. And I can attest to that because the same young lady that was antagonizing me, that wound up being a real thorn in my side, we were able to mend our relationship after many years, and we were able to ask for forgiveness towards each other. And now, we have been friends for probably now 17, 18 years. Okay, so it is possible once you know what the issue is. It is possible, if you want reconciliation, to resolve the issue. But a lot of times I am finding that people would rather just go around the issue and have conversations with other people who either are not involved in the issue, or they can't help you with the issue, right? They don't have a solution for your issue. And so the issue just drags on continuously. But over time, if you are the one who has done something to trigger this meanness, if you confront it, if you confront conflict, if you say, hey, this is what happened, I apologize, I ask for your forgiveness, I want to move forward, I want us to reconcile, I don't want us to be in this place where we are separate from each other, right? I don't want us to be in this place that I feel like I cannot have a relationship with you. I do want a relationship with you as a woman. Can we fix this? And this person is willing to, then I definitely recommend that you do it. All right? So keeping track in the back of your mind that if your goal is to get rid of your mean girl, you might have to start with yourself. Because if you assess your own actions and you find that you are the one that's provoking mean girls, then that means that you got to start with you first. All right? And you might not think that you have an ounce of meanness in your bones at all. You might feel like, hey, I'm a really friendly person. I get along with everybody. But then, I've done this before. You can ask the people around you who've been in your life for some period of time. I would recommend at least 5 years, who have seen you on a regular basis, who have seen you in different environments, not just inside the church, and begin to ask them questions about yourself. I know sometimes we don't, like to hear about ourselves, but it is important that we ask the people around us how they see us. Ask people that you trust. How do you see me? Am I friendly? Am I kind? Basic questions. Do you think I'm a nice person? If you think I'm a nice person, why do you think I'm a nice person? Is it because I buy you stuff and I give you stuff, or I take you out to eat? Yeah, too many of us point the finger versus looking inside. And so I've had a couple of my friends tell me that when they're in my presence, they said it's not necessarily anything you're doing per se, but they were saying that you have a strong personality that can come off as intimidating to other women who are not as vocal or who are not as outgoing, right? So I took that to heart, because it was two different people that have been in my life over a decade, right, that assessed me, and I knew that they were not trying to harm me by telling me this. They were telling me this so that I wouldn't say cause myself to shine less, but that I would be more aware of how I came across the people, especially women, in a social setting. So things that I began to work on, right, was instead of talking so much in a social setting, because I do know a lot of information, I can keep a conversation going, I began to work on asking that person questions in a social setting so that I can draw them out to talk about themselves and get to know them better, right? So we have to be ready to analyze ourselves, and we have to be ready to let the women in our life analyze us as well. In closing, because we're going to end early. In closing, the 3 reasons why you could have a woman in your life that's a meanie is: number 1, God could be using her to purify you. Number 2, God could be giving you an opportunity to prove the word in your life, to show forth that you can actually obey the word of God. Or number 3, she can be of your own creation. She can be of your own creation. So we've got a few minutes. If we have some questions or comments in the box, please go ahead and place them now. If you have some questions, any questions today, and then we're going to close out. But next week, while I'm waiting, next week we are going to talk about mean girl targets. 4 personalities that may be causing you to be targeted for the mean girl. All right? Are there any questions? And if you are outside of the chat box and you have a question or a comment for me, please feel free to email me at reachshante@gmail.com. The email address is in my bio. All right? Well, if there are no questions, I want to say thank you for joining me for this Daring Dialogue. I hope that as women, that what we're teaching and what we're learning together is going to be helpful for our life. Remember, everybody is not judging you, right? But judgment is good. And why do I say that? Because judging, okay, how can you assist a woman that has dealt with mean girls because of envy and jealousy to be more open to female relationships more? I think that has to do with, and when I say when you say encourage, are you saying like add more women to her life, or has she like completely shut down on any, any interaction with women? Like, are there women in her life now, or has she just completely said, I don't want anything to do with women at all? I would say the first thing would be for her to decide, do I want to let women back into my life, and what ways do I want to let them back in? Because I have run into lots of young women in my circle that have dealt with constant drama. Have faith to know all women are not like that, and be open to try again. Okay. I have dealt with women, in my own personal circle that have had consistent drama be centered around jealousy because of their beauty. And so that's a hard one to deal with. But I would say encourage her to decide what areas that she's going to allow women into. So she might start out with maybe it's a church setting, right? And in that church setting, you can encourage her to be open to going to women's events. That could be a start for her, because usually once a person has been burned by envy and jealousy, they tend to draw back from any events that have to do with women. So they don't go to women's conferences. they're not going. Women's retreats, especially not going to that, because that requires a level of, sometimes it can require a level of intimacy, right, that they have backed off from. So I would encourage her, to maybe start in that arena of getting back into attending events that allow her to be around women, period. Because she just may need to get used to being around women again. That would be the first start. A person who has closed themselves off to relationships with women, and I know, like I said, I had done that before, they will tend to not go to anything that has to do with a woman. So women's conferences would be out, women's retreats would be out, women's teas would be out. I know I had gotten to a point where I was like, I ain't going to nothing. I'm not going to nothing. I'm not going to a tea. I'm not going to a conference. I'm not going to a retreat. Anything that had to do with all women, I was like, mm-mm. And what broke me out of that, thankfully, was a pastor's wife. It was a pastor's wife. And she invited me to a women's retreat that she was hosting. And it was me starting to take that chance, right, to room with another group of women, room with a group of women that I didn't know. So it was a big step for me to get back into fellowshipping with women. And the women were kind, they were courteous, they weren't, they didn't go out of their way to be like extra overly friendly, but they were just themselves. And so sometimes when you have a woman has shut herself off so much from female companionship, sometimes she just needs to get back first and to immerse herself in an environment of women before she even starts with, that personal one-to-one connection. So that is the first thing that I would recommend, is that she get back into the environment of women, right? Understanding women, being there to observe, and not feeling, if she has been in an environment where she has felt threatened, that's the first step. She has to get back to the place where she feels like being in the company of women is a safe place. Because I can tell you, there are a lot of women who are struggling with this. They don't feel like being in the company of women is actually safe. And so they do turn to the companionship of men because they feel like, well, at least in this space, I kind of know what I'm getting. It's not the same kinds of drama that I would be dealing with if I was in the company of women. So that's the first thing. And making sure that she is immersing herself in a company of women who have healthy relationships, right? Not just immersing in any kind of environment, but making sure that these women that she's immersing herself with also have healthy relationships. So I hope that that was helpful. And we're going to stop here for today. I hope that you all have a great and wonderful day. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to cover another religion. But I also tomorrow it's going to be Thinking Thursday. So I want to talk tomorrow about something I read about education, right? And I think it's going to be important to talk about it because of what is happening right now with public education. I want to share that information with you, and it's talking about from a teacher perspective, and then I want to get you all's insight into what is happening with public and private education. I'll give you a little bit of my experience and some of the things that I saw happening in education when I was in the system. I taught for almost 16 years straight. And so I want to talk about that and hopefully help some people to understand what is about to go down with school systems in America. If we don't change who the Secretary of Education is, we're gonna talk about what you need to do and what strategies you need to be ready and prepared for, especially if you have children who are in public school, you have nieces, you have nephews, things that you might not be thinking about. You have children that are off in college now who are reliant upon federal funding for education. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow and what that could possibly look like in the next 3 to 4 years because of the changes that are being made in the education sector. So we're going to be a little intellectual tomorrow. So please come back and join us as we talk about what is happening in education. And we will cover another religion from our religion study. So you'll get to learn about another religion. All right. So thank you again for joining us. I hope that you will come back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again. Take care and God bless.